بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you to this recorded version of the class. I'm very sorry for the difficulty, and I would have loved to continue the class somewhat live, still not in person. It's an online class, but at least there was a live interaction that we had before. In any case, inshallah, this temporary difficulty will pass soon and we can again have the opportunity to be in your service online, inshallah. For now, due to the break, as it is, we took a break for the winter holidays, and then again, because of these difficulties, we took another break. So, inshallah, we want to try to keep going as much as possible. I will continue to share the notes and exercises. This week, there is an assignment as well that I made in addition to the notes that will be shared with you, inshallah. And like this, I will somehow try to record myself teaching the class. You can also feel free to email me and reach out to me, and we can try to be in touch, inshallah, if there's any questions. So let's get started. If you remember, we were talking about the crux and the main important discussion about anthropology and what we want to present in that class of anthropology, and that is proving the immaterial nature of the human being, of the soul. Inshallah, we will wrap that up in today's session, and then in subsequent sessions we will talk about some other things, but this is really the main thing. Before we start, just one hadith for barakah, inshallah. There's a saying of the Holy Prophet that had it not been for the presence of devils roaming through the hearts of the children of Adam, had it not been for shayateen around the hearts, the qulub of human beings, then they would have been able to look at the malakut of the heavens and the earth, as we have in the Quran about Nabi Ibrahim, وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. If I'm not mistaken, there's a verse like that. In any case, the idea is this is something we had talked about in our first proof for the immaterial nature of the soul, that there are other realms beyond the physical world. And when we think about it, when we think about dreams, when we think about our knowledge, we realize that even we exist at those other realms, in those other realms. Okay, so that was the first of 6 proofs that we went through in the previous session, our tripartite existence, meaning that our existence is not just in this dunya, the physical material world, but it encompasses 2 other realms: the world of mithal, the prototypes, where you have forms, shapes, colors, even though it's not a physical world. And then there is a higher world of the aql, where there's absolutely no forms, shapes, colors. It's just existences, concepts, immaterial existence. It's not just Allah Ta'ala that is the only immaterial existence. No, there are other beings, including us ourselves. Our soul is immaterial. That was all the first reason, the first proof that we talked about last week. Just an overview of what we want to go through in this session if we have time. I have to do 10-minute clips, it looks like. So, we'll do this in 10-minute clips. But if we get a chance in about 50 minutes, I'll try to go through 5 remaining topics, 5 remaining proofs. Proof number, so that or the third proof that we would cover today, and the fourth and fifth, meaning overall out of this list of 6 that you can see on the slide in front of you, number 4, 5, and 6. Those are very easy, very straightforward. There's not much to discuss there. Some interesting stories, a video clip that I have, I'll try to show you if this technology allows me. Those are to do with dreams, proving that people had true dreams where they talked to dead people, or to do with near death experiences, accounts, many, many accounts in different cultures, different parts of the world, people from different religions, different beliefs. They had experiences where they died and came back to life, and they witnessed things that they talked about. Okay, and then the final one is the testimony and account of people who they didn't almost died. They were alive, but because of their spiritual wayfaring and because they were awliya of Allah, they were able to somehow separate their soul from their body. Okay, so those three are pretty easy to understand, and inshallah, they won't take us long to go through. It is the first two. Okay, so proof number two and proof number three that are a little bit difficult. They require a little bit of a philosophical discussion. So bear with me, inshallah. Inshallah, it won't be too hard. There are notes as well, and hopefully the video explanation that I will go through right now will be clear. And inshallah, by somehow analyzing the philosophical properties of the material world, bodies, matter, and then comparing that to our human soul, our reality of who we are, we'll try to come up with two different proofs that indicate that no, we are definitely not a physical material being. Those properties that we see have to be there in the material world, they are not there in our soul. Okay, that's what our plan is, inshallah. Just to somehow make it more smooth, let me end this clip. So this was the introductory clip, and I will start another 10-minute clip now after this. Okay, so Bismillah, we start with the second and third proof, matter versus me. Like I said, these proofs are a little bit heavy, a little bit philosophical. We want to start by looking at the properties of matter, physical bodies, material beings, existence in the physical world, and then we will look at the properties of our own soul, compare them. So when we do this, we see that basically one of the things we notice is that material bodies are constantly in motion. Okay? And this is going to also be connected to the idea of time, that everything is changing, even when an object is not moving apparently in space. Okay, it's not rotating on its axis. At the very least, it is in a time. Temporal motion is changing it. Okay, so first of all, the idea of movement is something that modern science, physics tells us, right? That everything is made up of tiny atoms. The atoms have parts that are, I don't know, electrons that are going around the nucleus. And so there's this idea that everything is changing, everything is in movement. All particles that make up the world, that make up the universe, even though they may look at times like they're not moving, they are constantly in flux, in motion. Beyond that, there is this idea, like I said, that time itself is something that is constantly changing things. The same objects, like this book in front of me, it was different a moment ago than what it is now. It's not the same book. And there is a kind of veil that is drawn on the past versus the present, where something that is now in the present is different, is not able to access. You can't go back in time, and the physical object that it was a moment ago is no longer what it is right now. Okay, so this is the first property that we want to somehow recognize, that physical objects, material objects, have this constant change. Nothing is stable, nothing is constant. Okay, inshallah, that's clear. That was one thing, and we'll use this for the first proof that we want to come to, proof number two of our six. The second property of the material world, which will then be used for the next proof, proof number three, is that material objects, by definition, what does it mean to be a material object? It means that it has spatial extension. Meaning what? It's just a fancy word. It means it takes up space. It has a right side and a left side. It can be divided. Okay, if you can actually cut it in two, obviously it can be divided. You might reach a level that is so tiny, a subatomic particle, that it can no longer be divided. Nothing can split it in two. But at least in our mind, we can imagine that it is divided in two. It has a left side and a right side, a top and a bottom. Okay, this idea of taking up space, that's really, really important. Related to this is this idea of how um, an object is made up of these tiny, tiny parts that are all separate from one another. A physical object has no true unity. Right, this is going to be, I know this is a little bit like these are new concepts, probably. But just bear with me. There is this idea of something that, okay, you look at a table, you look at a piece of wood, you look at a bicycle, it looks like one object, it looks like it's one thing, but in reality, it's not one thing. It is just a collection of separate physical parts. If we were to just imagine that we could talk to a table and we were to ask the table, "Who are you?" What is the table going to say? It is not one thing. If it says that, okay, I am the tabletop and I'm not the legs, that doesn't make sense. It's part of the table is the legs as well. If it says that, no, no, I am everything, all of these different parts together, then it's not one thing anymore. It's actually a collection. It's a group of different things. And so that's this idea that, the physical world is made up of things that do not have true unity. There is no one real thing that we can point to and say that one being is the table. Okay, the table just consists of different parts. So this is connected to what I just said, that when it takes up space, that space is actually like separate parts that are somehow separated from each other, hidden from each other. At the very most, they might be touching each other. There might be two parts that are next to each other, but one part is divided and separated and hidden from the other part. Okay, inshallah, I hope that was clear. These are the two properties that we wanted to start off by saying that the physical world has these things. First of all, it's in flux, changing, at the very least because of time. And secondly, it takes up space. It takes up space, and then as a result, what that means is that it's made up of different parts that are not unit. There's no true unity between them. Now, with that, we come to ourself, and we want to try to introspect. This is what I was saying in previous weeks, that um, by pondering upon our soul, this is a window and a pathway into kind of learning about the immaterial beings, learning about later Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or higher realms of perfection that Islam teaches us about. So when we think about our soul, we begin to realize that there are aspects of me that are not in flux. They are not changing. I can think about a memory that I have. I remember when I was a child, as I was leaving my house in Edmonton, we used to live in Edmonton when I was a baby, when I was very young. I somehow have a memory of we painted the house when we were leaving, and my jacket touched the wall and I got paint on it. That memory is stable. I had that memory 10 years ago. I have that memory today. It hasn't changed. Okay? Or just the very fact that we can, in our mind, in our soul, compare the past to the present, truly recall the past. Okay, we're not saying that this is just like a physical imprint upon my brain of some effect that happened to me. No, that's not what it feels like. That's not what I appreciate. I can actually feel that, no, I remember the past. I'm thinking about it. I'm able to visualize it, recall it, and now compare it to the present. That means what? That means that my being, my soul, is somehow beyond these limitations of time. It is inclusive, comprehensive, universal in a temporal sense. And so that goes against that first property that we mentioned. Beyond just our memories, even our identity of who we are, the reality of who we are, reality Muhammad Mehdi Qasim Ali. I can't, if they take me to court for a crime that I committed 20 years ago, I can't say that, no, 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 that was somebody else. My body cells have changed. There is this stability, there is this identity, there is this concept of me that is the same. What is it? It's clearly not a physical thing because the physical body is constantly changing. Okay. Then so that's basically the first aspect of, now we're looking at properties of me as opposed to properties of matter. We see that there are stable parts. Okay, I said all of this, that our true self transcends the limitations of time. It's not changing. I don't have much time left, so let me just end this video right now and I'll start another video because I can't do more than 10 minutes. Okay, so we talked about properties of matter and how matter was, first of all, changing. Time is at least one aspect of how it's constantly changing, and then it takes up spatial extension, takes up space. As a result, it doesn't have true unity. And then we started on properties of me. We said the first property of ourselves is that no, we're not constantly changing. We have aspects of ourselves that are stable, that don't change. The next thing we want to think about with regards to ourself is this idea of how we have a true unity. Okay, so let me ask you this question. Look at this picture in front of you. Look at all these messy objects scattered across the room. And the question is, how do you look at it? When you look at this, do you look at it as being separate, discrete things? Or do you collectively look at it, collectively see everything? The answer is that we somehow have the ability to, at one go, see all of these different things and compare them. Okay? And that alone, this idea of the reality of seeing something, that alone is a kind of proof about how we are not just a physical being. We have the ability to truly somehow appreciate all of these different things in one go. Okay, so we have somehow a true unity of our soul, that we are not just a collection of separate atoms like that table that I'd given you the example of. No, we are something greater that has the ability to look at different things. And even at times, like not just things that you see, you could smell something and look at it and taste it. You could look at a huge scene in front of you. There was that room that we just looked at. But another example, imagine you're on top of a mountain looking at the river and the trees, and truly it's not just a physical phenomenon here that can be explained in a physical way. It's your soul that is beholding all of these objects. In one go, you are able to see all of them and somehow make a judgment about the color and the smell, and if it's in your mouth, the taste of it at the same time. What is that? That is something that is not just a physical phenomenon. That is a spiritual, an immaterial soul. Sorry, not spiritual, immaterial soul that is somehow unifying all of these separate things, and somehow perceiving and judging all of them at the same time. So again, this is something that we can look at in different ways. We can look at it in the sense of how we are looking and sensing different things at the same time. We can look at it even like as it says in the slides here. Um, different aspects of who we are, our body, our emotions, everything. It's somehow multiplicity is there. There's different things there, but they are united under one identity, one immaterial reality that is controlling everything, that is passing judgment, comparing. Some of these things are um, philosophical discussions that are a little bit deep, and so I don't know if I haven't done justice to it, I'm sure, but inshallah, even this little bit that I've said is enough to somehow appreciate that there is this idea that the reality of who I am, I have this true unity. Okay, as opposed to the chair or the table, as opposed to the bicycle, there's no real thing, real existence there that you can somehow point to and say, that is a bicycle. Bicycle is just a bunch of separate things that have been connected together. Whereas ourselves, no, there is one true reality, but it's not a physical reality. Our physical body has what we just said, properties of matter, where, like my I don't know, cheek is separate from my chin, and they're two separate things that are touching maybe, but they're not, like one. There's no connection there. There's no knowledge that one has of the other. The thing that has knowledge, the thing that somehow unites all of these separate things, separate parts of me, has to be an immaterial reality. There's more details here, and maybe in the next week, if I am able to, I will try to somehow answer maybe questions that might come up from this. But overall, this was the crux of the discussion of matter versus me, which basically results in two separate proofs. Proof number two, because we had done proof number one last week, proof or last session, proof number two, and proof number three. So proof number two, reason number two, is that the immaterial soul is stable. It's not changing. The material world is a world of change. Nothing is stable. If I was purely material, if I was just my physical body, there would be no constant stability in who I am, in my knowledge, in my memory, and therefore I am not purely material. And reason three was what we were just saying, this idea of true unity, that I am one being. I'm not just a collection of atoms and uh, proteins and neurons that has just no true unity, no true reality. It's just, sitting next to each other. No, there's definitely something about who I am that is truly one, and that cannot be a physical being. So, alhamdulillah, that wraps up the second and third reason. And like I said, we now move on to reason number four, five, and six. Four is going to be about true dreams, and I will narrate a story to you about a dream. Five is going to be about near death experiences. Really, really interesting. I want to show you a video clip, inshallah. It's in Farsi, but I'll comment on it, I'll translate it. And number six is experiences of awliya of Allah, the idea of mystics, prophets, imams. Even when they were alive, they had somehow experienced, separated their soul from their body, and narrated accounts that illustrate that the the human soul is different from the body. So inshallah, now we'll go into that. Okay, so proof number four for the immaterial nature of the soul are true dreams, dreams in which people have seen deceased individuals. Now, living in a non Muslim society, maybe we don't appreciate how common this is, because to a certain extent, people who are more spiritual, whose taqwa is more, people who are from, part of it has to do with taqwa, spirituality, part of it apparently has to do with your forefathers, sometimes a young child, because they're from a family of pious individuals, they have this potential to see true dreams. This happens apparently amongst Sadat a lot, families of Sadat. I'm saying that sometimes living in a non Muslim society, maybe we don't appreciate how common this is. But in a Muslim society, in a pious kind of environment, we would hear this more, and there are many many accounts of people who had dreams. The son of Imam Khomeini saw Imam Khomeini in his dream after Imam had died, and he told him that in this world, everything you do, you're going to be taken to account for. Even if you just move your hand, like that. Okay. Ayatollah Muhammad Baqir Tahriri, one of the contemporary scholars of akhlaq, one of the famous teachers of the Hawza, he narrates dreams in which he saw his father after his father passed away. In one of these dreams, his father told him, "Whatever I got was because of Imam Hussein, Hamish Hussein," something like that. So there's a lot of such stories. There are so many of them that we cannot deny it. You can't just give some kind of um, you know biological, neurological, physical explanation that, oh, the brain is imagining something. At times it's so daqiq, so precise, so detailed, telling something that is found to be so true that it can't be explained other than the fact that the soul of the person who's having the dream somehow communicates in that other world with the soul of the person who has died. Okay, I'll give you one of these examples of a dream that definitely cannot be explained any other way. Okay, and so that's this dream that Shahid Mutahari narrates, that once he went to sleep and in his dream he sees somebody who's outside a cinema in Tehran, and he goes to talk to him in his dream, and the guy says that, "I have died. I was the owner of the cinema. Pass this message on to my kids. They can do something to help me in the barzakh, in the afterlife." And he says, "How am I going to contact your kids?" And this man in the dream tells Shahid Mutahari the phone number at which he should call his kids. When Shahid Mutahari wakes up, he writes down that phone number. The next day, he calls the family, and it was true. He actually talks to the kids of the deceased man who used to own the cinema, and they do those things that he told Shahid Mutahari that they should do. So if we believe these accounts, and there are so many such accounts that we cannot easily reject them, if we believe them, then they make a very solid proof for the immaterial nature of the soul. Note, my dear brothers and sisters, that this is a different approach from what we had initially talked about dreams. Earlier on in the previous session, when we talked about dreams, we were approaching dreams as part of a proof that we exist in the alam mithal. We were trying to somehow divide existence into the physical material world, alam mithal and alam aql. And we said, okay, we are in alam mithal. How do we know that? One proof is dreams. Here, so that was part of another proof altogether. Here we're just saying, look, this is empirical evidence. This is enough evidence is there. Enough people have had such true dreams that that itself is proof that they actually were talking to a dead person in their dream. So that's that. As for the fifth proof, the fifth reason, this is the idea of what they call NDE in English, near death experiences. Actually, maybe from an Islamic perspective, we would say that no, these people actually died. Their soul had separated from their body. The body had stopped altogether. The heart stopped beating at times, and then the soul somehow came back. And there are many such experiences. Even Christians and other religions have taken pains to um, somehow write down such experiences. There's a website called nderf.org where you can find a lot of such accounts. There's a story, a book many decades ago written by a Christian lady apparently called, uh, one second, I'll get you her name, Betty Eddy, Betty Eadie, called Embraced by the Light, in which she talks about her own near death experience. So there's a lot of such accounts, not just in the Muslim world, although I'll tell you something interesting in Iran shortly, but across these different accounts of people from different backgrounds, different cultures, you see many similarities in what they narrate. They narrate, for example, that we even though their bodies stopped, like maybe their family started crying, everybody thought they were dead, they remember that we were still watching what was happening. We were maybe like a few meters above our physical body, looking down on the scene, seeing what everybody was doing. At times, it's even more amazing, where they actually go and they talk to dead people and they make a decision to come back to the world, or Islamic examples where they ask Allah, they ask the Ahlul Bayt to give them life again, and they come back to their body. There's times where in some of these accounts they're in some kind of tunnel, they can see a lot of light. There's certain similarities that are there, and this can't be explained. This is a question for people who are materialists, who think that it's the physical body. The body is apparently dead. The brain is not even active. And yet people have such complicated experiences. At times they find out things about realities that they didn't know about. And then when they wake up, they are able to recount what happened. In Iran, there is a TV show that they show in the month of Ramadan called Zindagi Pasaz Zindagi. In this, they interview such people. There's been more than 100 episodes. It's gone for many years now. Every episode, the host interviews one individual who had such a near-death experience. Amazing, amazing stories. Okay, I'll just show you a short clip of one of them. It's about a 3-minute clip. So what I'll do is I will end this. Let me just actually make a comment about the final proof, and then we'll wrap up this clip. And then I'll make one final clip in which I just show you that near death experience from one of the episodes of the TV show Zindagi Pasas Zindagi. Okay, the final proof I won't speak about much. Basically, it's this idea that not just dreams, not just near death experiences, but even awliya of Allah, pious, ascetic individuals, we would be more interested and more trusting of people who are doing this properly, who are traversing the spiritual path of the Ahlul Bayt. People like Ayatollah Qadi, Allama Tabatabai, this Sayyid Hashim al Haddad, whose picture is in front of us. They have such experiences. And so when we read about them and how they could see their soul separated from their body and experience something amazing, that itself is a proof for us. Interesting to note, though, even people who traverse paths of spirituality that are not sanctioned by the Ahlul Bayt, that are not Islamic, simply by putting their physical body through certain difficulty, they may also be able to do this. It is possible that they have somehow uh, opened their eyes to the other world, and while they were alive, seen certain realities, even though they were not Muslims or they were not following the spiritual teachings of the Ahlul Bayt. Regardless of whether they were doing it correctly or incorrectly, this is also empirical evidence. This is also proof that human beings are not just the physical body. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, we have now gone through all the 6 proofs. That does complete the content that I wanted to go through in this session. Inshallah, we will move on to a different topic in the remaining 2 sessions. We'll talk about things like the perfection of the soul. Now that we have established this idea that we have a soul, we want to know more about how is this soul perfected. By following the Sharia, it's perfected. What is the relationship between the physical body and the immaterial soul? We'll see that there's a two-way relationship there. And then comparing, if we had time, comparing the relationship of the soul to, it's like the unity that we talked about, the true unity in the soul, to the different things, the multiplicity in the human being, comparing these kind of concepts to Allah Ta'ala and His creation. These are some upcoming topics we'll finish with. One last thing, though, in the end of today's session, I wanted to show you this near death experience. Okay, this is a clip from Zindagi Pasas Zindagi. We'll watch about 3 minutes of the clip, and then I'll just summarize it in English to give you an idea of what amazing, outstanding things there are. That, again, living in a non Muslim environment, we don't hear such things. We don't see, we live in heedlessness of such realities, unfortunately.
ایستگاهی که هیبت نورانی منو برد، من با همون هیبت دوچرخه سواری خودم توی قبل از تصادفم تو بلوار سجاد مشهد بودم. یک پشت چراغ قرمز یک ماشین شاسی بلندی پارک بود و بچه بچه اینها که توی ماشین بود از سانروف سرش آورده بود بیرون و من شروع کردم به ادا اصول براش در آوردن و خندوندم این بچه رو. بچه هم قشنگ خندید. یادم دست گذاشت رو شونه مامان باباشو با انگشت منو نشون داد و من هم همینجوری داشتم شکلک در می آوردم. همشون خندیدن و تمام شد و رفتم. این چیزی بود که تو دنیا اتفاق افتاد و خودم شاهدش بودم.
فراموش هم شده بود.
آره. و اون دنیا بهم اینا رو دوباره نشون دادن و برام باز دوباره بازش کرد.
شما اون اصلا یادتون رفته بود؟
اصلا هیچ وقت فکر نمی‌کردم که به همچین کاری که من اسمشو شکلک و دلغک بازی در میاد گذاشتم انقدر زیبایی داشت برام. فراموشم شده بود. ماشین رفت و منم به مسیرم ادامه دادم و تموم شد. اون دنیا برام بازش کردن که این زن و شوهری که بچهشون رو تو خندوندی در فلان تاریخ فلان ساعت فلان روز در حال متارکه و جدایی بودن. برام مثل یک فیلم نشون دادن که اون آقای کمی جلوتر رفتش گل فروشی پیدا کرد و گل خرید و به خانومش داد. اون آقا از خانومش عذرخواهی کرد، گفتش که خوشبختت میکنم، قول میدم که خیلی بهتر باشم برات. و خلاصه که خیلی حال همدیگر رو خوب کردن و من تمام اون زیبایی ها رو دقیقا اونجا برام باز میکرد که حامد با یک لبخند کوچولوی تو بی نهایت برای خودت بهشت ساختی، بی نهایت زیبایی بهت دادیم، بی نهایت حس و حال خوب بهت دادیم، بی نهایت هر چیز زیبایی که فکرشو بکنی بهت دادیم.
اون خنده بچه باعث شد که پدر مادر دوباره شاد شدن و با هم دوست شدن.
به هم.
Okay, inshallah, that's enough. Basically, the story was like this, that this individual, the guy who has some kind of, I don't know, bandage or something on his face, he got into a really bad accident and he was dead for a little while. And he remembers when he came back to life, he remembers certain things that happened to him. He was in that other world and certain realities were shown to him. The results of his actions in the dunya, he was shown what happened in the dunya like a film. He saw it and the effects of his actions. One of them was that once he was like beside him, a car pulled up. I think he was on a motorcycle. A car pulled up and there was a little kid and he started making funny faces and making that little kid laugh. And that little kid laughed so much he like somehow caught the attention of both of his parents, and the family became happy in that instance. He was told in that world that that husband and wife were about to separate. They were going through marital issues, but that happiness of the child that you caused ignited some kind of love again in their heart. The father went and bought flowers and he apologized to the mother and said that I'm going to make it up for you, how I've been treating you, whatever, we'll be happy again together. Because of that one thing, he had this huge reward in the hereafter. Subhanallah. Anyways, guys, this was just a reminder, a story, inshallah, for us to appreciate not only the discussion that we have at hand about how the soul is something immaterial, but beyond that, inshallah, a reminder for all of us to, inshallah, be careful of our actions and try to do things that we would be rewarded for in the other world, inshallah. Okay, inshallah, we'll end with that. Everybody, inshallah, have a good week and remember us in your dua. Pray for the state of the Muslim Ummah in these difficult times, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.